Imagine the scene. You are a Catholic in 17th century Italy who goes to Mass one Sunday. At the front, with his back to you, a Franciscan priest celebrates Mass at the altar. While sitting in the congregation, you suddenly see the priest lifted into the air against his will, to the disbelief of everyone else in the chapel. What you've just seen with your own eyes is the miraculous levitation of Joseph of Cupertino. Rather than being celebrated, however, Joseph was shunned by many in the Catholic Church, and he spent many years imprisoned. But just who was this floating friar, and how did someone so shunned end up becoming a saint in the Church? Joseph was born in the village of Cupertino, which in modern times is now part of the heel of Italy, in the province of Lecce. The region had been conquered many times, and many different people had laid claim to it, including the Greeks, Romans, Byzantines, Normans, and the Spanish. When Joseph was born, the area was part of the Kingdom of Naples and was slowly growing in prosperity. Joseph, however, had a terrible start to life. Born in 1603, his father had died before Joseph was born, leaving the family homeless after their property was seized to settle the large debts he had left them saddled with. As a result, his mother gave birth to him in a stable. Even as a child, Joseph began to experience visions that would continue throughout his life. He soon developed a terrible temper and was also known for fits of anger. Like many born into poverty in the period, Joseph received little to no education and was not judged as being intellectual enough for school study or any sort of serious career. Eventually he became an apprentice to his uncle, a shoemaker, although this too ended with little success. When older, Joseph felt he had a calling to join the Franciscans, a Catholic religious order. At the time there were many different groups of Franciscans that had different approaches to following the teachings of their founder, Francis of Assisi, who had lived in the 13th century. He first tried with a group of Franciscans known as the Conventuals, but as he had little in the way of education, they did not accept him. He then tried his vocation with the Capuchins, known at the time to be amongst the strictest followers of the poverty of St. Francis. He entered as a lay brother rather than as a priest. A lay brother needed less education than a priest and was often given more manual labour tasks, such as cooking, cleaning, and answering the door of the friary. This only lasted 8 months, however, during which time he did not impress the rigorous friars and was sent home. His family were not happy with his repeated failure. All this time, Joseph still experienced visions, which often made everyday tasks difficult for him. After repeatedly pleading with the conventual Franciscans, he was eventually allowed to live at their friary nearby, although he was not allowed to join the order. He was initially given the task of cleaning up the stables and taking care of the horses, and was essentially working as a servant. After several years of hard work, his simple and honest work ethic impressed the friars, and he was eventually allowed to join the order in 1625. Despite many struggles with the academic nature of studying for the priesthood, he was ordained a priest in 1628. After his ordination, he was sent to the nearby friary of Santa Maria della Grotella, where he would spend the next 15 years of his life. It was at this point that Joseph, when celebrating Mass, began to levitate into the air. Word soon travelled that this was a regular occurrence, and he soon gained a widespread reputation for holiness in the local area and beyond. He apparently levitated over 70 times in total. Over time, Joseph became so popular that he was viewed as a problem by the authorities within his order and within the Catholic Church more broadly. Eventually, he was ordered to stay in his small room, known as a cell, and forbidden from appearing in public should his levitations cause more scandal. But why were the authorities so worried about these miracles? One of the major reasons was that such unnatural events often carried with them accusations of witchcraft or the influence of the occult, and were often feared to be the work of the devil rather than the divine. It was a very thin line at times between being seen as holy and being seen as a heretic. Eventually he came to the attention of the Inquisition, a wing of the Catholic Church that investigated anything that might be seen as heretical or against the taught beliefs and doctrines of the Church. The Inquisition eventually ruled that he needed to be sent out of the region. Afterwards, he lived in other parts of Italy, including Assisi, in the hopes of keeping him hidden. The friar died in 1657. Soon after this, his ongoing reputation for holiness meant that the Church began investigating the possibility of beginning the canonization process, which could eventually result in him becoming a saint. The investigations relied on many eyewitness reports of his levitations and ecstasies, although many of these were collected many years after Joseph had died. The road to becoming a saint could be a long and challenging one. Investigations into the life and possible miracles of an individual often lasted hundreds of years, and sometimes were never actually finished. While Joseph proved controversial during his own lifetime, after his death it was much easier to control his image and reputation for the good of the Church by presenting him as a devout, austere and devoted Catholic who submitted to the authority of the Church when necessary. Eventually the flying friar was canonized in 1767 by Pope Clement XIII and became a popular saint. Due to his high-flying reputation, Joseph became the patron saint of all things aerial. He is known as the protector of aviators, pilots, and astronauts, for example. Because he struggled with education, he is also a popular saint prayed to by students studying for exams. The city of Cupertino in California is also named after the saint and is a famous part of the Silicon Valley, where Apple has its headquarters and where Steve Jobs grew up. Like many figures who would later become saints, Joseph was shunned during his own lifetime because his popularity and frequent flying were seen as problematic by the Catholic Church. Yet his aerial antics, as well as his reputation for simplicity and holiness, ensured that the original air friar is a popular saint even into the present day.